Nadia Rivers smiled across the candlelit table at Damien Cross, her heart heavy with hope and anticipation. Their marriage had been a whirlwind, whispered promises, champagne toasts, and smiles that dazzled the world. Everyone envied their perfect love. But behind Damien's charm lay subtle cruelty. He often criticized her, laughed at her ambitions, and questioned her dreams of motherhood, claiming she might be too fragile. Each compliment he gave was paired with a hidden barb, making her doubt herself. Yet she clung to the love they had shared, telling herself patience was a virtue. At dinner parties, Damien's charm fooled everyone, and she laughed along, hiding the unease curling in her chest. But that evening his smile didn't reach his eyes. A fleeting glance, a barely perceptible smirk, it was enough to leave Nadia uneasy. She pushed the thought away, blaming nerves or perhaps imagining shadows where none existed. But shadows, she would soon learn, can grow into storms if ignored. This was the beginning of a love story that would turn dark, a tale of manipulation and betrayal stretching into years of suffering and eventual revenge. Months passed and subtle manipulations became constant. Damien criticized Nadia's choices, belittled her opinions, and made her feel insecure about her body and career. Every word of encouragement hid a sting, every compliment was calculated. Friends began noticing the change. Nadia, once vibrant and confident, now hesitated, doubted herself, and second-guessed her every decision. Damien smiled in public, a perfect husband. At home, his jokes cut like knives. One night, as Nadia nervously shared a new project idea, he said softly, "You'll never be enough for me, Nadia." "You just wait." The words twisted in her chest. She laughed, masking fear, hiding the dread that was slowly taking root. Damien's control was precise, psychological, emotional, almost imperceptible. He isolated her subtly, cutting her from her support system without anyone noticing. Even her family and closest friends started questioning her sanity, influenced by his carefully planted doubts. Nadia tried to cling to normalcy, to her sense of self, but every step felt like walking on thin ice. It was as if she had married a mirror reflecting not love, but her worst fears amplified. This was not care, this was control. And Nadia, trapped in her own home, hadn't yet realized the full extent of the storm approaching. Nadia and Damien began trying to have a child, pouring hope into each cycle. Every failed attempt was a dagger. Damien, initially supportive, grew cold and distant. He made veiled remarks. "Maybe some things aren't meant for us, or perhaps you're not capable." The implication cut deeper than any overt insult. Her body, her dreams, her very womanhood seemed insufficient. Nadia cried silently, ashamed that her body might fail her husband. Her emotions became a weapon against her. Damien's indifference became a hammer against her spirit. At social gatherings, he flaunted perfection, his charm masking the cruelty he inflicted behind closed doors. Friends began noticing the subtle tension, the way she flinched at certain words, the hollow laughter that had replaced genuine joy. Yet Damien's manipulation was so precise that anyone observing only saw a woman struggling with infertility, not a man quietly dismantling her confidence. Nadia, isolated in despair, longed for someone to notice the truth. But truth, she discovered, can be invisible when someone is masterful at weaving deception. Each month's disappointment dug a deeper trench in her heart, shaping her into a shadow of the woman she had been. One evening, while Damien was distracted, Nadia's phone buzzed with a notification, a message from an unknown number. Curiosity prickled, she opened it. Damien had been secretly messaging Selena, a younger, glamorous woman. The betrayal seared her like fire. Every dream of family, every hope for love felt instantly hollow. Confronting him, Nadia trembled. Damien smiled faintly, almost amused. "You've failed at everything, Nadia," he whispered. "I deserve someone who can give me a family." The words cut deeper than any physical blow. He had weaponized her very body, her fertility, against her. Nadia tried to leave, but Damien's manipulation extended to threats of financial ruin and social humiliation. Her home felt like a cage. The man she had trusted and loved had become a calculated predator. She realized with chilling clarity that the life they had built was a lie, a perfect facade masking cruelty. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was systemic, strategic, and intended to break her entirely. Nadia sat in stunned silence, understanding that survival alone would require cunning she hadn't yet summoned. Damien methodically severed Nadia's connections. Friends drifted away, influenced by rumors he quietly seeded. She was unstable, obsessive, fragile. Family began questioning her judgment. Every conversation, every attempt to seek support was twisted into proof of instability. Nadia's isolation deepened. Nights were filled with tears and quiet despair, days with pretense and survival. At work, Damien subtly undermined her, sharing selective truths that cast her as incompetent. Humiliation became daily life. Each insult, each calculated snub stripped layers of her identity. Nadia began to doubt her own memory, her feelings, even her sanity. Yet amidst the pain, a quiet ember of defiance lingered. Somewhere deep inside, she knew she could not remain a victim forever. Survival had become insufficient. She would need strategy, patience, and meticulous planning to reclaim her life. The slow suffocation she endured would eventually fuel a storm he never anticipated. The divorce papers arrived in the mail, a brutal confirmation of her fears. Damien had legally severed ties and announced that he was expecting a child with Selina. Assets were controlled entirely by him, leaving Nadia financially vulnerable. Shock and disbelief consumed her. The man she had loved, trusted, and sacrificed for had betrayed her completely, abandoning her in a meticulously calculated move. Her dreams of family and security were stolen overnight. Nadia retreated into herself, questioning her worth, her choices, and the illusion of love. Friends offered hollow comfort. Social media flaunted Damien's new life, and the world seemed to celebrate her humiliation. Yet beneath the pain, a seed of resolve began to grow. Damien believed he had destroyed her, but he had underestimated Nadia's resilience. Nadia drifted for months, numb and broken. Damien paraded his new life online, flaunting Selina and their unborn child. Nadia felt erased, humiliated in public and private spheres. At work, rumors of instability and emotional fragility sabotaged her reputation. She lost confidence, friends, and faith. Nights were long and lonely, filled with memories of a life that no longer existed. Each insult, each betrayal became a weight, pressing her toward despair. Yet in those darkest moments, Nadia realized the truth. She was not powerless. The very manipulation that had crippled her could be analyzed, documented, and countered. She would rise not out of vengeance alone, but as a testament to survival and justice. One morning, Nadia resolved not to remain a victim. She began quietly gathering evidence of Damien's betrayal. Financial records, messages, witness statements. Allies emerged, former colleagues, friends, and even acquaintances Damien had manipulated. Slowly, Nadia discovered that the man who had humiliated her had vulnerabilities, patterns, and mistakes. Her anger became a tool, her pain a source of precision. For the first time, she felt power. Every document collected, every secret unearthed was a step toward reclaiming her life. Damien's facade of control was fragile. Nadia realized that revenge, executed carefully and publicly, could be her path to justice. Months of meticulous preparation followed. Nadia mapped Damien's finances, charted his lies, and noted every betrayal. Each interaction with him was calculated. She feigned fragility while weaving a web of exposure. Friends and allies were recruited cautiously, instructed to maintain secrecy. Nadia began testing small maneuvers, sending anonymous tips to journalists, planting evidence of Damien's deceit. Damien remained oblivious, arrogant in his belief that he had destroyed her completely. Nadia learned patience. She understood timing was everything. Every smile, every polite conversation with Damien concealed layers of strategy. The quiet shadow he believed powerless was becoming a storm. Therapy, self-reflection, and careful self-care restored Nadia's confidence. She rediscovered her intelligence, beauty, and resilience. Damien's attempts at humiliation lost their impact. Social interactions, once nerve-wracking, became opportunities to observe and plan. Nadia understood that revenge without composure would fail. She cultivated calmness, charm, and strategy simultaneously. Her renewed self-worth was both shield and weapon. Each day, her resolve strengthened. Damien had underestimated the depth of her strength. She no longer feared humiliation. She welcomed it as fuel for the storm she would unleash. Nadia's network revealed damning evidence. Damien's hidden accounts, embezzlement and manipulation of finances and associates. Emails, recordings, witness testimonies, all documented with precision. Each discovery fueled her sense of justice and righteous anger. She catalogued everything, ensuring legal admissibility. Selina's complicity was confirmed through texts and photos. The betrayal was total, but so was the proof. Nadia's plan evolved. Exposure needed to be public, undeniable and undeniable. Damien's arrogance would be his undoing. Subtle tests confirmed Damien's predictable patterns. Nadia feigned weakness, allowed him to gloat, and observed his overconfidence. Private messages, emails, and financial inquiries all verified his mistakes. Damien's complacency blinded him to Nadia's preparation. Each smile she gave in public, each polite nod was a calculated deception. She maintained appearances while sharpening her tools, preparing for the perfect moment. Patience became her greatest weapon. The catalyst arrived unexpectedly. Damien announced a lavish celebration for the birth of his child with Selena, flaunting photos on social media. Friends and family gushed, unaware of the layers of deceit behind the smiles. Nadia's heart ached for what was stolen, yet the spark of defiance flared hotter. She attended, under the guise of cordiality, camera-ready and polite. Every interaction was calculated. Selena's smug glances, Damien's self-satisfied smile, they were unaware of the web being spun around them. Nadia observed, listened, and recorded. Conversations hinted at financial mismanagement, lies, and manipulation that could ruin Damien publicly. The celebration became her playground, the perfect stage for planting seeds of exposure. Each smile she offered concealed a storm beneath, waiting for the precise moment to strike. Nadia began leaking small truths anonymously, discrepancies in Damien's finances, hints of embezzlement and Selena's complicity. Social media buzzed, curiosity grew, but no one suspected Nadia. Damien scoffed at the rumors, confident in his untouchable image. Nadia's patience was precise, timing, subtlety, and accuracy. She watched Damien sweat as small cracks appeared in his empire. Friends and family whispered, doubt crept in. Nadia's plan was not only revenge, it was exposure, forcing Damien to confront his deception. She savored the irony. The man who had destroyed her life had no idea the storm gathering just beneath his perfect surface. Nadia enlisted a few trusted allies, former colleagues, investigative journalists, and even financial advisors, to validate her findings. Together, they pieced a narrative Damien could not deny: the misappropriation of funds, manipulation of business partners, and intentional emotional abuse toward Nadia. Each document was precise, each timeline verifiable. The plan evolved. The final exposure would be cinematic, public, and irreversible. Nadia felt a sense of clarity, purpose replacing years of anguish. Pain had become strategy. Every betrayal Damien had inflicted fueled meticulous preparation. The underdog was no longer defenseless. Selena's arrogance became her weakness. Nadia, disguised as a friendly figure in social circles, subtly tested her reactions. In conversations, she hinted at Damien's indiscretions and mismanagement, gauging Selena's confidence. Every tremor in Selena's smile, every defensive glance confirmed cracks. Nadia realized Selena, though complicit, was not as cunning as Damien. A careful push here, a whispered truth there, and Selena's own mistakes could be leveraged for the final reveal. The chessboard was set. Nadia cultivated psychological leverage. Damien believed she was fragile, broken, and harmless. She exploited this perception, smiling politely, showing humility, even appearing emotionally unstable in public. Each act reinforced his overconfidence. Behind the facade, she documented inconsistencies, captured private conversations, and gathered corroborating evidence. Damien remained blind, a man trapped by his arrogance. Nadia understood. Revenge required precision, patience, and timing. One misstep would ruin everything. She had to remain invisible until the perfect strike. Through her investigative allies, Nadia orchestrated small, anonymous revelations in Damien's social and professional circles. Rumors grew, confidence eroded. Damien became increasingly defensive and erratic. Friends questioned Selena's involvement. Colleagues wondered about mismanaged funds. Nadia's influence spread invisibly, an unseen force reshaping perception. She watched carefully, noting every reaction. The storm she had nurtured was nearing its apex, and Damien remained blissfully unaware. Nadia prepared herself emotionally for confrontation. Years of humiliation and betrayal had shaped a woman who could wield pain as strategy without losing composure. Each night she rehearsed, envisioning the reveal, controlling every nuance. Self-doubt lingered but was overshadowed by clarity. Damien had underestimated her, and she would not fail. Every tear shed in private became armor. Every insult endured became ammunition. The emotional preparation matched the logistical. Revenge was a full-spectrum plan, and Nadia was ready. The opportunity arrived at a charity gala Damien was headlining. Nadia attended as a guest, cameras flashing, dressed elegantly, concealing fury beneath smiles. Her allies had prepared digital presentations, financial audits, and private messages, ready for public display. Damien strutted confidently, oblivious. Nadia's heart pounded, but her face betrayed nothing. Every word, every gesture had been rehearsed for maximum impact. The underdog was poised to rewrite the narrative. When the gala speeches began, Nadia stepped forward with poise. She opened the presentation, revealing the evidence: financial mismanagement, manipulations, and Damien's deceit toward her and colleagues. Screens displayed private messages, recordings, and documentation. Gasps filled the room. Damien's smugness crumbled. Selina's face drained of color. Cameras captured every moment, the calculated public humiliation that Nadia had orchestrated meticulously. Each revelation struck like lightning, dismantling the empire Damien had believed unassailable. Social media erupted. News outlets picked up the story, hashtags trending worldwide. Damien's reputation, once pristine, became toxic overnight. Selina faced public scrutiny for her complicity. Business partners distanced themselves. Friends who once gossiped about Nadia now applauded her courage. Justice, long delayed, had arrived in spectacular fashion. Nadia observed quietly, feeling satisfaction tempered by the years of pain endured. Damien approached Nadia privately, his charm replaced with desperation. "You've ruined everything," he hissed. She met his gaze, calm and composed. "No," she replied softly. "I've reclaimed my life, you destroyed yourself." Every word held the weight of years of betrayal and humiliation he had caused. His attempts at intimidation fell flat. Nadia's composure, confidence, and evidence rendered him powerless. The man who had once controlled her now trembled before the strength he had ignored. With Damien and Selina exposed, Nadia focused on rebuilding. She recovered her professional life, reconnecting with supportive colleagues and friends. Therapy and self-reflection healed wounds inflicted by years of manipulation. Financial stability returned as Damien's assets were frozen, and legal restitution ensured her security. But the true victory was emotional. She had reclaimed autonomy, dignity, and self-respect. Every betrayal transformed into lessons, shaping a woman stronger and wiser. The pain had been harsh, but survival and triumph were sweeter than vengeance alone. Months later, Nadia stood at a quiet lakeside, reflecting on the journey. Letters of gratitude from others who had suffered similar betrayals reached her. She had not only survived but empowered herself and inspired others. Damien faded into obscurity, his lies and manipulations revealed. Nadia finally understood. Revenge was only part of the journey. Healing and reclaiming oneself was the true triumph. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she whispered to the wind, "You made me suffer, but I survived. I am free." And for the first time in years, Nadia felt complete peace, a life reclaimed, dignity restored, and a soul unbroken.